Yeah, fair to say. Yeah, we got in late last night, but yeah, all good.
How are they looking for team news for Sunday?
Yeah, I guess first things first. Last night, all good. Obviously, boys fairly tired, but physically no issues from last night's game. And then out of the guys who sort of stayed back, Destiny. We think we'll be okay. We've obviously got training today and tomorrow, so he's got to get through that. Sunny unlikely. Again, he's pushing hard, but I just don't think the turnaround will be quick enough and for him to be available at this stage. And then that's it. The others are kind of long term.
I remember a few years ago, Son was touch and go, and he went on international duty. Given what he's been saying, is it fair to say can rule Son out for international duty? Do you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, if he doesn't play for us, and like I said, it's not like he's close. Then makes sense. But again, we always have to be mindful. International duty, national teams take over. They're the custodians of their players, but we've given them all their medical information. They understand, and they're understanding, and Sonny knows the situation.
I'm sure you're absolutely delighted for Dom Solanke to make the England squad. In terms of James Maddison, who's had a really good start as well, you're former international manager yourself, and he's an emotional guy, and he speaks so well. What have you said, or what will you say to him? Because I'm sure he'll be disappointed.
Yeah, look, I'm sure he's disappointed, but that at the same time he's playing well. So it's not. Sometimes that's all you can do, and these things come along at times. It's not always perfect in your career, and there are situations and circumstances that don't mean you don't always get what you want, but it shouldn't deter or detract from everything else you're doing. So he's playing really well for us. I think he's been outstanding all year. He's making an impact in every game he plays. He's a really important part of our midfield setup, and if he continues to do that, I'm sure he'll get selected again. But you can't just sort of put everything in one basket of just being disappointed because you have missed out. Like I said, that shouldn't have any effect on him and the way he's playing, because he's been brilliant for us.
50 games in charge of Spurs last night, flown by. Where do you see Spurs in 100 games under your management?
Well, many wouldn't have said that I'd make 50, mate. Even when I was on about 46. So, look, it's obviously, as managers, there's always a kind of ticking clock against our tenure at all times. So anytime you reach a sort of milestone, it's always, I guess, an indication of people still believe in what you're trying to do. So it has flown by, to be fair. It's obviously 15, 16 months, 50 games, but enjoyed every one of them. And hopefully next 50 are, ones where we can make a real impact.
Hi, Ange.
Hey.
Great way to mark 50 games with Tottenham's best winning run for 3.5 years. How close to the desired level is your team right now?
Well, it's always kind of a shifting sort of measurement for us, or scale, in that every time you go on sort of any consistent run of form, and I think we've been consistent all year. Obviously, the results in the last 5 games I've got the rewards for the performance, but that always kind of makes you even more eager to keep pushing on and get better and see what level we can reach. I still think we're a developing side. We're still very much a young side. The squad's still, developing together, which suggests whatever markers we set at the moment, we should be able to exceed. But there's no doubt when you win games, like I said, we have in recent times, that belief and I guess that energy just accelerates, and the key to that is to keep it going. You don't want to let it go. You want to work as hard as we have so far to keep this sort of momentum going.
Looking ahead to Brighton, just wanted to ask you about Fabian Herzl, 31 years old, younger than most people in this room. What do you make of the job he's done at Brighton? How impressive has he been?
Yeah, great. I mean, he's 31. It's crazy, but I think that's about the age I started, albeit at not this level. Really impressive. He when he was coaching St Paul, he coached Jackson Irvine, who I had the Socceroos. He's a great player, but a fantastic person as well. And he actually reached out to us and said, "Fabian's, likes what you're doing. Can he come pay a visit?" He came and spent a day with us last year, and he asked a hell of a lot of questions, and I gave him too many answers, that's for sure. If I hadn't only been Brighton manager, but you could tell he's just a real student of the game. Wanted as much knowledge. He was already sort of a senior manager, and he got them promoted last year, so he was already doing a good job. But he was that. You could tell when somebody's got that sort of curiosity, and I think that's the key for all managers. I think, especially young ones, is you got to maintain that. It can get sucked out of you at times because you when you get into the battle of, and particularly at this level of dealing with one crisis or another, you can forget that it's that curiosity to always find out more information. I think if he maintains that, he'll be an outstanding manager. But he's done well. Look, it's probably a perfect fit for him because I think Brighton are a fantastic club. They're careful about who they put in as manager. There's usually an alignment there, which I wonder sometimes with other clubs whether they even think about that stuff. So he's in a great place.
Do you remember any of the questions he asked you? What was the
He
best
asked
question?
a lot. Yeah, no, I actually palmed him off at one stage because he was asking me too many, so I gave him to the other coaches. But he was just inquisitive about everything. Obviously, like I said, he was already a senior manager. He was doing a good job, but the fact that he still wanted to ask, and obviously had observed us, and I'm sure other clubs as well. It wasn't just us, but it made a real impression on everyone.
Last trip to the Amex was one to forget for Tottenham. What did you learn from the defeat that day?
Yeah, it was a curious one because we again, it was one of those periods where we were a bit disrupted in terms of player availability and stuff. But we started the game really poorly, really open, and then by the end of it, it could have ended up 4-4, 5-4. But we didn't handle the occasion well, particularly early in the game, but. It was kind of indicative of our season where there was some good stuff in there that got overshadowed by, stuff that, we really struggled with at times last year just in terms of our consistency of performance. So, so far the away games we've had this year, we've played really well. I mean, Leicester we should have won. Newcastle thought we played really well but didn't win. Obviously, Man U, we played well there. So we're handling, even last night playing away from home in Europe, I think we're handling those situations better. So we're going to have to on the weekend too. Thanks.
Hi, Ange, how are you?
I'm good, mate.
Dominic Solanke's England call-up. Are you firstly surprised it's taken so long since his last international call-up to be called back into the England squad? And secondly, how much is it vindication of the hard work you and he put in at the beginning of the season?
Well, I don't know, surprised. I mean, like I said, with Dom, he's had to work awfully hard in his career, and it's a salient point to all young players that the trajectory doesn't always go in sort of a linear fashion. Where he started at big clubs, he was obviously he was a youth international. He was he obviously made an impact, but just for one reason or another, it didn't get started, but it didn't deter him. He went to Bournemouth and he worked awfully hard and had a year in the Championship. So there was, I think there's reasons why he wasn't selected. Certainly his last, 13, 14 months in terms of his goal output, even before that, especially last year in the Premier League, got him into the frame even for the Euros. He was probably really close to getting selected there, and it's all down to him, mate. I've had him for a month. I've got zero to do with his achievements to get into the England team. It's to do with him, and even the way he's handled his move here. Big club again for him. Obviously big expectations, and unfortunately got injury. But since he's been back from that injury, he's been brilliant for us in all aspects. And credit to him. But more exciting for me is I know there's a hell of a lot more to come.
I can tap into your experience at international level with footballers. Before the last gathering international break, under 21 level, Unai Emery was a bit critical that Morgan Rogers was playing for the under 21s, questioning what he would learn from that. You've got Archie Gray in the under 21s this time round. You had him last time as well. What do players like Archie learn from playing youth football with their countries?
Yeah, I guess it depends. I think it's kind of, I always think these things that you should kind of treat them on an individual basis, because I think, for different footballers at different levels in their career, and depending on sort of their workloads, international football can be a real benefit. I think Archie will benefit a lot from being with the under-21s, because you've got to remember with Archie, he's really had 1 year of really senior football, and that was at championship level. He's kind of just breaking into this level now, Premier League level, and I think the more experiences we can give him at this young age, the better he'll be moving forward. But, there could be another player who's already got that, by 18, 19, has that experience, has had 2 or 3 years of senior football, and I can understand maybe under-21 international football, particularly when you're talking about Premier League players and their workloads, you kind of think, is there a benefit? But I really think, for the most part, you treat that on an individual basis. I'm always an advocate for international football because I've seen how much it helps young players develop. But again, you've always got to sort of measure that against kind of where they're at in their club situation.
And finally, 4 teenagers started for you last night. I don't know you didn't like the Ange.
Don't even say it, mate. Don't even say it.
I'm going to go with Postecoglou's prodigies.
You even struggled to say it, to be fair. So I don't think it's rolled off the tongue.
In all seriousness, you are at least someone that puts trust in young players. And for a senior manager, other clubs, sometimes that doesn't happen. Why are you so, or how does that trust come about?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I think most managers would like, if they've got talented youngsters, to use them. But I just think for us, where we are in terms of as a club, I think it's really important for what we're trying to build. Like I said, I've always felt that clubs that have sustainable success have a real strong underpinning of young players who grow with the team, so that invariably over a course of time players move on, and when you're looking for replacements, they're already here, and whether that's guys who are, club trained, like particularly say Mikey, Will's had a couple of years with us, or we're bringing them in. I think I said last night, the ones we bring in, like we worked really hard to get Archie and Lucas to our club. And part of that was me saying, look, you come to our club, we'll develop you and you will play, you'll get an opportunity. Now, it's easy for me to say that, get them to sign a contract, and then, 3 months later they haven't played at all. And then, come next window, I go again and speak to the next 18-year-old, and he turns around and says, well, actually, you know what, the evidence doesn't back up what you're saying. So I have that responsibility. But at the same time, they've earned it, and it's an easier decision for me to make when I see them every day and I say, well, you know what, I have no fear about throwing them out there in terms of they're ready for it and they want to contribute. So, it's always a balancing act. And, for a club like ours, I understand how important it is, particularly for club-trained players like Mikey, to make sure we keep that pathway open for him.
Hi, Ange. Just wanted to follow up on Archie Gray. How was he so comfortable playing in so many different positions at such a young age?
Well, he's got no choice because I'm putting him there, and that's part of kind of his development. But look, he's obviously, it probably helps. He comes from a footballing family. He's probably been exposed to football from the moment he was born. So I think he understands the game, and he understands. He takes information really well. He's trading, he's constantly looking for more and more information, which helps. And then he's just got a great temperament. He seems to take things in his stride and not let it affect him. I said last night, played him in 2 different positions. Probably both aren't the least preferred for him. He's played sort of right fullback and midfield, but I had him at left centre back and left back last night. So and I thought he did brilliantly again. So, but I'm not going to just put him at different positions. It's at the moment we're using him where we need him, and I think hopefully that gives him confidence in that's how much I trust him. But eventually, we'll settle him into an area. But him playing at the moment, he's played an FA Cup, Carabao Cup game away. He's played 2 European games. He's had exposure in the Premier League already in the sort of first 10 games of his Tottenham career. I think it's great for us.
You spoke about Hurtsela visiting the training ground and picking your brains, etc. Do you find it quite beneficial as well when these coaches speak to you because you get to share ideas with them?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had quite a number come through. I've always been open to it. I just don't think there's any real secrets in football. I think for the most part, everything you need to know is kind of out there. But I enjoy it. I think it's good for my staff to be exposed to it as well, because again, football can become fairly insular. We all talk about trying to block the outside noise, so whatever noise you do get in becomes really important. So I think having, we've had guys from all sorts of football clubs, different nationalities from different sports come in and spend a day with us, and I always enjoy it, and I think it works both ways.
I'll finish this section with George, please.
Angelo, when the managers often talk about a rebuild, they sort of talk about suffering and going through a bit of pain. And I just wondered, the way you finished last season compared to the way you started this season, do you think you're almost possibly through that pain now and the good times are coming?
What's the date? I reckon it was about 14 days ago that didn't feel like that. It felt like there was still a lot of suffering, it seemed. It's just the way of the football world that it's a very, very fine line to what people's perception of how you're going is, and that's why you can't let that be your guide. You just can't, not in today's world. It doesn't mean you ignore everything, because, there's some probably astute observations as to how we're going, and you need to address that. Some of that's around sort of whatever measurements we use to map our progress, or what some people see is important to us. But ultimately, you've got to rely on something else other than where the spotlight is at the moment. And it didn't feel like that long ago that people were questioning everything I was doing, and nothing's changed 14 days later, except for the results. But for me, even before that, I could see that the measurements we're looking for, we started the season well. There was some real growth in us. But it's not going to be a smooth road. We're not at that stage of being a team where things are just going to sort of, click all the time. We're still got to go through some, like you said, suffering or challenges. But that's important. You need to do that. Otherwise, you're never going to know how you're going to handle it. And I think so far we've handled it well.
One player who seems to be flourishing is Dejan Kulusevski. Can you just talk about how his sort of role has evolved in the team and the way you're playing him, and just basically what's led to his good run of form this season? Yeah,
Decky's been brilliant, like out of this world in many respects in terms of just what he's able to do in that sort of central role. Obviously we used him more as a wide player last year, but again, that's because we didn't have too many options out there, and it was the area he was most comfortable in. But when we started using him inside, I felt he felt that it kind of unshackled him a little bit, and he's got an unbelievable capacity to run, with and without the ball. His physical numbers are ridiculous. And he has the quality to hurt teams with that. So, I think at times maybe playing out wide, he felt a bit suppressed, because especially in our system, there's a lot of times where you've got to hold your position and just do the thing for the team but not be involved. And he's the kind of player who wants to be involved. So, obviously when, we brought a couple of wide players in this year, I really sort of thought, let's go with him inside. Obviously, pre-season played him as a 9 because we didn't have a 9, and even there he made an impact. And the beauty of Decky is, I think he's sort of just getting started. He's really, I think he enjoys the role. I think he can make a massive impact, and it just adds a different dimension to us because there isn't many players like him.
And I know you joked about Fabian Herzler asking too many questions, but in all seriousness, if you knew he was going to be a Premier League manager this season, would you have still invited him into the training ground last season?
Yes, mate, I would. I think there's nothing wrong with being a nice person. Like I said, it's, if somebody comes and knocks on your door and wants a cup of tea, and, you kind of, as a kindred spirit, you let him in your house, mate. It's all right. He's not going to take the furniture or steal the cutlery. You kind of trust that. So, yes, I would have let him in, mate. No problem.
Okay,
thanks, George.
I'll be around on Monday then.
31 to be a Premier League manager is crazy, albeit that you were the same age. there was a particular challenge for you because I guess you were managing some ex-teammates as well. But just in terms of the pure age thing, as a young coach, what's the biggest challenge going into a dressing room where people are possibly old, some older than you? How do you win them over? What do you think?
Yeah, look, I've often said that I think the key to all that, irrespective of your age or your kind of background, is that you have to be yourself, and that's harder when you're younger because do you really know yourself? And I think the worst thing you can do is go in there and try and make an impression by being somebody you're not, because over the course of time people will see through it. Eventually your true self shows yourself. Now, I remember, like I said, when I was his age, and I walked into the dressing room, like I said, guys who I played with, some close friends of mine. If I went in there and it was anything other than myself, they'd see through it straight away because they go, well, that's not you. So I just tried to be myself. And like I said, it's not easy because, at that age, do you really know yourself anyway? Because you don't know how you react to certain situations, and that's the challenging bit. But I'm sure for Fabian, it's a constant process now of him, reading the room and seeing what how the players are reacting and interacting with him. Your staff are important because they're kind of your messengers as well, and the key to it, like I said, is just to somehow have a real self-awareness about who you are as a person, because that will be revealed at some point. How you are when you lose, how you are when things aren't going well, will all be revealed. And if what you've shown them first up is not really you, I think over the course of time you're going to lose them because they're going to say, well, we don't really believe what you're saying.
Just on the flip side of that, I don't know if you saw the pictures of Jurgen Klopp this week getting an award in Germany, but
you looked $1 million, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's like 5 months out of the job, you've got 10 years.
Funny that. Has he done a press conference since? No.
I hate to remind you, but you're, as well as Fabian being the youngest, you're now the oldest.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
But in all seriousness, do you ever, when you look at how good Jurgen's looking now, do you ever worry about what toll it might be taking on you? And as you get older, what do you have to do differently to maintain the physical and psychological oomph that you need to do the job?
Yeah, look, it is a challenge, and like I said, I think the role is becoming more difficult than when I first started, absolutely, just in terms of the demands, and not just in the Premier League, but just in general, the demands of, and the pressures and the sort of short-term nature of roles in general in football for managers. And look, I've my philosophy on all that is that I think just generally in life, stress is the biggest thing that will hamper those things you're talking about, your health, whether you're mental, physical health. And I've learned to get to a space where I try not to let that into my life, whatever circumstance, particularly in the professional world. And that becomes really discipline, like I said, in just making sure that what's important to you stays important to you. Don't get sort of drawn away from that by being dragged into areas that other people potentially want to take you in. That like I said, I've become really good at making sure, because I think if I'm, like I said, I'm, the oldest now, and if I ever get to the stage where I don't wake up in the morning and really look forward to the day, I know then, that's the time for me. There's no point in me hanging in there, because that's when I think you're doing it for the wrong reasons, and that's where that stress gets in. But it's just, again, I think a lot of it's just about understanding yourself as a person. And I know what's important to me in my life, and I know what's important to me in my professional life, and that's my anchor. And if I stay to that, hopefully I kind of keep everything else away.
Cool. Have you managed to keep your curiosity?
Oh, absolutely. I think, I really think it's important, and the beauty of it takes you down different roads. So, I'm probably not as curious about the same things I was curious about 30 years ago. Back then it was like, football saturation. Now it's more about, life and other things. And I think it's important, for us in our roles where 99% of our work is, mental, not physical. How do you exercise your mind? And I think being curious is the best way to do that. So it takes you to some weird and wonderful places, mate, that you normally wouldn't expect. But I still have that.
That's what I wanted to ask. There's no secrets in football, so to stay curious, presumably you're
Yeah, you look beyond it. Yeah,
Where do you go to?
Oh, mate, just life, mate. You know, it's like we, get our heads up from these things and just experience life. You know, you'd be amazed what you see. I learn things from my kids. I learn things from my wife. I learn things from my friends, from people I interact with. I read about. I listen to. Just life, and it's the best educator there is. Better than school, better than anything else is life. But you've got to be engaged in it, And like I said, it's not like I'm wandering the streets and talking to random strangers, but I think you have a conversation with someone, or you listen to someone, or you interact with someone, and you walk away. As I said, the best conversations you can have are the ones where you don't talk and just listen. And I'm a good listener.
When you look back, and you're just starting out as a manager, is it in some ways more fun in those days? Because the pressure's a bit different. Flip side being, if you were to be out of a job suddenly here, you'd probably walk into another one at some point. When you're a young manager starting out, there's no guarantee that might be your only chance.
Yeah, but I mean, I know what you're saying, but at the same time, I think for any manager, I was watching sort of Graham Potter on Monday night, and it doesn't matter sort of the payoff or you get another job. It's still not great to lose your job. That feeling's still there, I think people kind of think, he'll be all right, he'll get another job, or he's got a good payout. But you're still, you're driven by wanting to succeed, and you don't like when somebody said, well, no, sorry, you haven't, So I think that has to be there. I always said in this job, if you get comfortable, if job security is your main driver, you're pretty much gone. There's got to be that competitive edge. But I still find it fun. I still enjoy it. I still, there's, like I said, there's never a day I wake up and think, I've got to go in today. I've got a press conference at 11 o'clock. And, I think I just enjoy it. I feel blessed to do what I do. And but that doesn't mean that I'm comfortable with it and it's okay if I don't succeed here. No, I'm getting up. I want to succeed here. That drive is definitely there.
Ange, just on Kulusevski's move to the middle again, did he have to kind of convince you that was his best position? Because he was very vocal about it at the back end of last season. It was pretty clear that he wanted to play now. I may be wrong, but I seem to remember you saying you still thought he was a winger in sort of spring last year. So how did that process happen?
No, and when I said that, he was, because we didn't have any other options for ourselves out there, and a lot of these things are just an evolution. Again, you always got to temper, what players say and what they want. Ultimately, my role is to kind of try and figure out what the best is for the team and what the best is for the player. I always thought he could play inside, because when I looked at his, when I took the job, I kind of looked into every player's background. I could see a lot of his early background was playing in more central areas, and he kind of developed into this sort of wide player in different kinds of systems, and it kind of suited him when it was a transition, a counter-attacking team, because he has that capacity to run. But with the way we played, I could see, like I said, I think the thing I noticed with Decky after a while was that he felt constrained playing as a winger in our system. I still think in a different system he could play very, very well as a winger. I think he showed that. Because he just wanted to be involved all the time. And like I said, if you look at the way our wingers play, that's sometimes the discipline is in not being involved just by holding your position. So it was then a matter of, getting him inside, but then he still had to work with the parameters of, how our guys inside work, and he's thriving in it at the moment, and I think it's exciting the potential he has to play in there.
Talking of your wingers, Timo missed a couple of 1-1s against United, and there was that chance last night where he tried to go around the keeper and put it inside netting. How's his confidence? And I guess, do you kind of want more from him in front of goal?
Yeah, no, look, again, it was 14 days ago those questions were asked of Brennan, and it's like I said, I think I said at the time, it's where we're at in this world where we just think he's missed 2 chances, so he's hopeless. No, he's not hopeless. All footballers at this level are very, very good footballers. He's just had a bad day. If you write a bad article, it doesn't mean you're hopeless, yeah? You go, well, I could have done better there, but I'll write the next one now. Like I said last night, Timo, his first action, I think he took on the winger, put in a brilliant cross for Will, and Will didn't quite get on the end of it. And if that goes in, he's had a great assist. Like you said, then he gets a chance of one-on-one. If he scores that, in the last 2 games, could have had a couple of goals, we'll be having a different conversation. But that's the fine lines. But in terms of his general play, I think the last 2 games have been really good for us. He's been taking on his plays, but getting in the right areas. Yes, goals help. We've seen that with Brennan for those kind of positions. But that doesn't mean he's not a good player, and that's where we it just bemuses me not bemuses me, it's a wrong word, but I get really annoyed when they put everything into that moment to say that, oh, he's not a good player. Of course he's a good player. He's a fantastic player. Scoring goals would help him, would help us, yes, but we'll persevere with him because I still think he's contributing to the team. And as we've seen with Brennan, those kind of things, and Dom, like I said, 14 days ago I was sitting here answering questions about Dom Solanke not scoring, and Brennan, and now we're talking about him in the England team and Brennan scoring. So it's that fine balance. But I think his performance the last 2 games have been better for us in terms of doing his role as a winger in our team. Yes, a goal would be great for him, but not for me to say that I expect more from him in that position.
And just on Fabian again, there's a lot of chat about his high line after the Chelsea game. I'm guessing that's quite familiar.
I don't know, mate. So it's a question you'd need to ask him. Our high line against Chelsea is quite infamous. I don't think he took that as a carbon copy. But look, I think he has. When you look at Brighton, there's been a consistency about their football probably since Graham, maybe preceding Graham came in, and then obviously with Roberto, and you can see still that possession. But I think there has been a change in the way they defend. They're a lot more aggressive. I think that's sort of Fabian's imprint on it. So great challenge for us in terms of that.
Just on that, actually, to follow up, I think this club has tended to kind of lurch between styles in the past. They went from Villas-Boas to Harry Redknapp, from Pochettino to Mourinho. Is part of what you're doing now this kind of club DNA that the chairman's talked about and Johan Lang's talked about? Brighton a good example of that, the kind of smooth transitions between projects to kind of managers that seem to play in a similar way.
Oh, look, I think it definitely it just makes real important decisions in a football club a lot easier in my opinion. If you know what you want in terms of, say, style of play, style of player, if you know this is what I want, well, there's plenty of evidence. You go look at a manager and you say, well, how have his teams played? Or you look at a player, how has he played, right? But if you don't, and you just say, well, he's a great manager, let's just bring him in, and you say, but I also want him to play attacking football, but you look and he hasn't done that, well, you're going to, doesn't mean you get it wrong, but it's more likely to be not a good fit. Same with players. So, and like I said, it's about what the club really identifies as important to them. So Brighton have identified, so I think that's why they've picked managers who have all done well for them, because they go, well, this is what we want, this is what we've got, and this guy has shown evidence he can do that. And like I said, it's the same with players. Like, unless you have a real clear idea of what kind of striker, what kind of winger, what kind of centre-back you want, just going for the best centre-back isn't necessarily going to work. Just going for the best manager is not going to work. And it's a big part of sort of my decisions I've made, in my career is about where I'm going. Do they know what they're getting? Because I'm not changing. It's not like they're going to put me in here and say, well, look, we want you to play counter-attack. That's not going to happen. So I just think but, at the same time, clubs, owners, they get pressurised and saying, well, he's a great manager, he's available, go and get him. But, is he going to be a good fit? Don't know. So I think it's the way to go, but others choose a different path.
Okay, we've only got a couple of minutes left. We'll go there and then.
Yeah, sorry,
John,
I've been rabbling on today.
Nice to meet you.
You too, bud.
When it comes to Richarlison as well, there's some pictures spotted of him back on the field. How close is he back to the
Yeah, he's going well. Hopefully, post-international break, we're kind of hoping we'll get him sort of involved in team training during the international break. Sort of, we've always got a smaller group, integrate him, and then provided he gets through that, I reckon post-international break he should be okay.
And he established himself more towards the end of last season as well, and now he's got a brand new striker in the building as well. How do you kind of foresee the dynamic of Rishi and Dom kind of competing with one another after the...
Oh, mate, I'd love that. You know, it's exactly what we want. That was the plan at the start of the year, and then you end up, second game of the season, neither of them are available. So we've already seen we've got a hell of a lot of games, and we want to maintain and be competitive in all of them. And I can't wait to get Richie back available. He's, like I said, when he played for us last year and he was fit, he scored goals. So for me to have the ability to have him and Dom as our strikers, and Richie can play wide as well, but especially in that central area, can't wait to get him back. But at the same time, his recent history over the last probably 2-3 years is that he hasn't been able to sustain, he's kind of broken down. So what we're trying to do this time around is try and do everything right with everything we do with him, so that when he comes back, he stays back. I think that's the key with Richie, and hopefully that's the case.
John, finish for you, please.
Do you remember back in '96, anybody saying 31? How's this going? Was it going to work with us?
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, myself included. And yeah, when you look back now, I mean, it's just, I think to myself, just even the person I was back then, how that. But having said that, I felt comfortable. I didn't feel uncomfortable. I think for whatever reason, I ignored my age, and I just felt, okay, this is what I want to do, and I feel comfortable standing up in front of people and sort of trying to lead and direct. So, but when I think about the kind of person I was back then, and just the general life experience I had, I thought, geez, it's if I actually sat down and thought about it, it's pretty overwhelming. Because, like I said, your first job is really important in football as a manager. If you don't succeed there, do you get a second chance if you don't have a really strong sort of playing pedigree behind you? So, but I didn't think about it, and I think maybe that's the kind of innocence of youth in a managerial terms, not in life terms, where you just go, oh, I've got the opportunity, I'm going to go for it.
Did you learn anything from Fabian when he came to you? Did he get you doing the talking?
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm a pretty good listener, so when they ask me too many questions, I'm pretty good at asking questions back. I think he extracted more from the staff than he did from me. But I loved, again, it was a timely reminder for me of his enthusiasm and the fact he was inquisitive. And, you feed off that, and he walks out of the building, I go, okay, well, he's got something out of us, what can we get now, and what's our next, or my next sort of learning. So, yeah, you do. I enjoy that energy. I enjoy that enthusiasm. You also get a little bit of pride that somebody wants to come and do what you're doing. Because if I wasn't doing anything, decent, they wouldn't be coming and asking questions. So that makes you feel good as well. So, and you're never too old to feel nice about yourself. And yeah.
Was it a surprise that his name popped out of the Brighton supercomputer?
No, I don't think so. I think when you kind of... Because I'd followed his team pretty closely because, like I said, Jackson Irvine was there, we had another young Aussie boy, Connor Metcalf. I kind of followed the Aussies anyway, and there's, like I said, a plethora of games on a weekend. I'd pick and choose what I watch. But I'd followed him, and I kind of sensed that he'd be one of the ones that probably were a decent fit for kind of the way Brighton work.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. Thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
When was it? When did he come? When was Hudson again?
I think it was the second half of last year. It would have been... It might have been a break, might have been January.
Might have been the...
Yeah.
Thanks.